Speed can be intoxicating, but sometimes it is the story behind that speed that truly captures us. The moment when engineering ambition, racing heritage, and cultural timing collide to create something unforgettable. In the mid-1980s, the world of performance machines was changing fast. Power was rising, technology was accelerating, and the line between track and street was blurring. One motorcycle stepped straight through that line and never looked back. It came from a manufacturer obsessed with racing, determined to translate the thrill of Grand Prix dominance into everyday motion. The result was a machine that terrified regulators, captivated enthusiasts, and left a mechanical echo still heard today. It was part legend, part experiment, and fully alive in every sense of the word. The kind of creation that made people believe road bikes could truly carry racing DNA. For those who crave the untold stories behind these mechanical icons, stick around. And if you enjoy deep dives into machines that changed how we think about speed, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment which legendary bike we should cover next. In 1985, Yamaha released the RZ500, a motorcycle that blurred the boundary between the racetrack and the street in a way few had dared before. The RZ500 was not just another sport bike. It was a statement from a company riding the high of Grand Prix success, led by the same engineering philosophy that had propelled its YZR500 race machine to fame. At a glance, it looked exotic, its angular fairing and quad exhausts announcing something aggressive and purpose-built. Underneath, the bike housed a 499 cubic centimeters liquid-cooled two-stroke V4 engine. An ambitious layout for the street, especially in a time when most riders were still adjusting to the idea of mass-produced performance machines approaching racing power levels. Yamaha designed it with a clear intention: to let ordinary riders experience what professional racers felt at full throttle, but in a form that could still legally wear a license plate. The RZ500's core was innovation. Each cylinder had its own carburetor, feeding a compact yet potent engine that produced a thrilling power band unlike anything else on public roads. The twin crankshafts rotated in opposite directions, reducing vibration and improving balance. A design directly inspired by Yamaha's GP efforts. Add to that the Yamaha Power Valve System, or YPVS, which used electronically controlled valves to optimize exhaust flow and broaden usable torque. It made the RZ500 both furious and surprisingly flexible for a two-stroke. Riders could cruise smoothly in the low range and then, with a twist of the wrist, unleash a surge of power that felt more like a slingshot than an acceleration curve. This combination of street readiness and race-derived engineering fascinated journalists and terrified regulators. Two-strokes were already known for their intense emissions and fuel consumption. And here was Yamaha bringing one to market that could outgun most leader-class four-strokes of the time. It was a rebel in plain sight. Fast, loud, and unapologetically mechanical. Yet despite its wild nature, Yamaha gave it surprising refinement. The frame was a mix of steel and aluminum, designed for rigidity without excess weight. Suspension components were adjustable. Brakes were dual discs up front, confident and progressive for the era. Every detail was aimed at balance, making the machine feel as alive in corners as it did on straight lines. The public reaction was explosive. In showrooms, the RZ500 drew crowds. People who had seen Yamaha's racing success with Kenny Roberts and Eddie Lawson now saw a chance to own a slice of that championship DNA. Dealers could barely keep up with demand. But the excitement came with a warning label. This was not a beginner's bike. The RZ500's power band could surge from calm to chaos in an instant. Riders unprepared for the hit could find themselves overwhelmed. It required respect, finesse, and a rider willing to understand its character rather than fight it. On open roads, the RZ500 became a sensation. The sound of its 4 expansion chambers harmonizing through the rev range was unforgettable. A mechanical symphony that drew attention wherever it went. The bike's lightweight design and tight chassis geometry gave it agility uncommon for the time. It could lean deep into corners, flick from side to side, and recover with remarkable composure. Yet, its limits were razor-sharp. Push it too far and it reminded riders that this was still a machine derived from competition. One that demanded precision. That danger, that thrill, became part of its allure. In markets like Canada, Australia, and the UK, where emissions laws were more forgiving than in the United States, the RZ500 found eager buyers. American enthusiasts, forced to settle for smaller RZ models or import the 500 themselves, began building an underground reputation around it. To own one was to own something forbidden, something that connected you to a time when Yamaha took the ultimate risk. For many, it became the purest representation of what performance could mean in the 1980s. Unfiltered, mechanical, and alive. The decision to build the RZ500 was as much about pride as it was about profit. Yamaha had dominated the Grand Prix circuits with its two-stroke engines, and wanted to translate that success into showroom relevance. The RZ500 wasn't built to last a decade. It was designed to make a point. In a market increasingly filled with smooth, predictable four-strokes, Yamaha proved that there was still room for rawness, for engineering that thrilled first and compromised second. The RZ500 stood as a symbol of what happened when a company built a machine purely to demonstrate what it could do, not just what it should do. As magazines tested it, the reviews painted a picture of contradictions: lightning fast but surprisingly stable, intimidating yet addictive. Riders found themselves chasing the perfect corner exit, where the power band would erupt just as the rear tire bit into the tarmac. In that moment, the RZ500 wasn't just a motorcycle. It was a dialogue between man and machine, one that few other bikes could replicate. Yamaha had achieved something rare, a motorcycle that felt like a race bike but could still idle at a traffic light without protest. It captured the essence of a motorsport era that celebrated skill and bravery over comfort and efficiency. But underneath the applause, there were murmurs of concern. Mechanics noticed the complexity of the V4 engine. Maintenance was demanding, parts were intricate, and tuning required precision. Riders discovered that keeping the bike in peak condition took commitment. Two-stroke oiling systems, carburetor synchronization, and exhaust resonance chambers all demanded attention. For some, that was part of the romance. For others, it was a reason to move on to simpler, more forgiving machines. Still, Yamaha had made its mark. The RZ500 showed what could happen when engineering ambition outweighed commercial caution, when innovation was treated as an art form rather than a formula. By the time the first wave of owners had mastered the bike, it was already becoming a collector's piece. Yamaha's production run was brief, and its unique mechanical layout ensured it would never be repeated easily. Enthusiasts began to realize they were riding history, not just horsepower. The RZ500 had done more than push boundaries. It had redefined what those boundaries were. It asked riders to meet it halfway, to rise to its challenge, and in doing so, it rewarded them with an experience that no four-stroke could replicate. Its influence rippled through the motorcycle community. Even as four-stroke engines became dominant, the idea of a lightweight machine with a razor-edged power band persisted. Modern sport bikes owe part of their DNA to the lessons learned from machines like the RZ500. Power-to-weight balance, aerodynamic design, and the pursuit of connection between rider and machine. While the era of two-strokes was fading, the spirit of the RZ500 lived on in every bike that tried to capture that same sense of immediacy. The Yamaha RZ500 was not perfect, but perfection was never its goal. It was an experiment in passion, a product of engineers who wanted to feel the same adrenaline their racers felt on Sunday afternoons. Every component, from the precision of its YPVS system to the hum of its twin crankshafts, reflected that obsession. To ride it was to step into a different world. One where speed was not just measured in miles per hour, but in the depth of the experience it delivered. The Yamaha RZ500 story does not end with its specifications or its initial impact. It deepens when we explore how and why it existed at all. In the early 1980s, Yamaha was dominating Grand Prix racing with its YZR500, a machine that had captured championships and cemented the brand's image as the master of two-stroke performance. Translating that success into a road-legal motorcycle was a bold idea, both technically and strategically. The company faced a crossroads: continue refining its popular four-stroke machines for mass markets or gamble on a high-strung racer for the streets. The decision to pursue the latter became a turning point, and the result was the RZ500. The Yamaha RZ500 emerged from an era when motorcycle engineering was evolving rapidly. Manufacturers were experimenting with materials, engine layouts, and new electronic aids. Yamaha's engineers believed that true progress meant pushing the limits of what could be sold to the public. They wanted to bring the visceral experience of racing to the average enthusiast without diluting the essence that made their factory bikes so exhilarating. Every design choice reflected this philosophy. The 499 cubic centimeters V4 layout, for instance, was chosen not for simplicity but for authenticity. It was the closest the company could get to its GP machines while staying within regulatory bounds. This ambition came with engineering challenges. Fitting 4 expansion chambers under a street bike's fairing required creative packaging. Yamaha solved it with a split exhaust layout. 2 pipes exiting beneath the seat and 2 flanking the lower fairing. The result was visually aggressive and acoustically unforgettable. The bike's weight distribution was carefully tuned, its frame reinforced to handle the sudden torque spikes of the 2-stroke power band. At 438 pounds wet, it was not featherlight, but its responsiveness gave it a personality far livelier than its number suggested. The Yamaha RZ500's YPVS system was a triumph of mechanical ingenuity. At low revs, it restricted exhaust port size for better low-end response. At high revs, it opened wide for maximum flow. This innovation turned a peaky race motor into something almost manageable for street riding. Riders discovered that if they treated it with patience and precision, the RZ500 could be surprisingly civil at city speeds before transforming into a missile, once the tachometer swept past 6,000 revolutions per minute. That sudden transition became legendary, the defining character of the bike. It was both exhilarating and intimidating. A mechanical handshake that asked, "Are you ready?" Yamaha's engineers also knew that performance meant nothing without control. The RZ500 suspension, derived from the brand's racing research, provided excellent feedback for the era. A steel perimeter frame with aluminum swing arms offered rigidity where it mattered most, giving riders a direct connection to the road surface. The braking system, twin discs up front and a single rear, was more than capable for its time. Yet on long, spirited rides, fade could set in, a reminder that the RZ500 was always straddling the line between racer and road bike. When journalists got their hands on the Yamaha RZ500, the reviews were a mix of awe and caution. Some praised it as the ultimate riding experience, a street-legal Grand Prix machine that delivered sensations unmatched by any other production motorcycle. Others warned that it was too much for most riders, that its razor-sharp delivery required professional-level skill to exploit safely. This divide between admiration and fear only enhanced its mystique. The RZ500 became a badge of honor among those who could handle it, a machine that demanded respect and rewarded mastery. The motorcycle's market trajectory was as dramatic as its performance. Yamaha priced it high, but the demand justified it. Enthusiasts lined up to experience what was, effectively, the closest thing to a race bike they could own. In countries where the RZ500 was officially sold, it became an instant hit. In markets like the United States, where it was never officially imported due to emissions and noise restrictions, a thriving gray market emerged. Riders imported the bike privately, enduring red tape and customs hurdles just to own one. This exclusivity only fueled its legend. Behind the curtain, Yamaha knew that the RZ500 was a short-term project. 2-stroke technology was already facing scrutiny from regulators concerned about emissions and durability. The company's engineers understood that this kind of machine could not last in an increasingly regulated world, but they also recognized its importance as a statement piece. It was proof that innovation could still defy conformity. In that sense, the RZ500 was as much a cultural artifact as it was a motorcycle. Its complexity made it fascinating to mechanics and collectors alike. The V4 engine's intricate design, with twin crankshafts and cross-linked timing gears, was a marvel of precision. Maintenance was demanding, but for enthusiasts, it was a labor of love. Carburetor synchronization, exhaust tuning, and YPVS calibration required skill and patience. Those who mastered these rituals became part of a small, proud community. Riders who understood the RZ500 not as a mere vehicle, but as a living machine with quirks, moods, and temperament. The Yamaha RZ500 also marked a transition point for motorcycle culture. It arrived at the end of the 2-stroke era, right before stricter regulations and changing consumer preferences shifted the industry toward 4-stroke performance. While rivals focused on developing larger displacement engines for smooth, predictable power delivery, Yamaha chose to celebrate agility, excitement, and mechanical purity. The RZ500 became the last great expression of that philosophy, the swan song of an engineering approach that prioritized thrill over conformity. Riders often described the sensation of piloting the RZ500 as transformative. At low speeds, it felt almost docile. At full throttle, it was an entirely different beast. The front wheel lightened, the exhaust notes screamed, and the chassis danced with energy. It was a masterclass in controlled intensity, a reminder of what motorcycles could feel like before electronics and safety systems tempered the experience. For those who could unlock its full potential, it offered a connection to machinery that few modern bikes can match. In the years following its release, Yamaha's focus shifted toward more accessible, four-stroke sport bikes. Yet, the RZ500's influence persisted. Many of its design principles, mass centralization, power band management, and aerodynamic integration, carried forward into later generations of performance motorcycles. Even though its two-stroke heart faded from production, its spirit lived on in the way Yamaha approached every new challenge, with boldness, precision, and a touch of defiance. Collectors today view the Yamaha RZ500 as more than a nostalgic relic. It represents an age when manufacturers were willing to take risks, when performance was pursued for its own sake. Well-preserved examples have become prized possessions, restored and maintained by enthusiasts who appreciate not just its rarity but its historical significance. Riding one today is like stepping back into a time when innovation was driven by passion rather than data, when every gear change carried the echo of a racetrack. The Yamaha RZ500's legend grew even after its production ended. By the late 1980s, stricter emission standards and the rising popularity of smoother, more efficient four-strokes pushed two-strokes into decline. Yet the RZ500 remained a symbol of what pure performance once meant. It represented the final act in a story that began on the racetrack and ended on public roads. Yamaha had taken its most advanced racing concepts, adapted them for the street, and created a motorcycle that felt both futuristic and defiant. As technology evolved, the RZ500 stood frozen in time, a monument to an era when excitement came before regulation. Owners of the Yamaha RZ500 soon realized they had something special, something that could never be replicated under modern rules. As four-stroke sport bikes gained traction, the RZ500 became a bridge between generations. Riders who grew up idolizing two-strokes saw it as the pinnacle of that technology. Younger enthusiasts discovered it as a living artifact from an age when motorcycles demanded courage. The bike's reputation for ferocious mid-range power and razor-sharp handling turned it into a cult classic. It was no longer just a fast motorcycle. It was a benchmark for mechanical authenticity. The Yamaha RZ500's long-term impact on design philosophy is clear. Its compact V4 layout influenced how engineers thought about mass centralization and weight distribution. Its YPVS system foreshadowed the electronically controlled intake and exhaust systems that would define later performance motorcycles. Even the sound of its engine, a shrill, harmonically rich scream, became a kind of legend among collectors and historians. It was the soundtrack of innovation, the voice of an era when manufacturers prioritized sensation as much as specification. Riders who kept their RZ500s running learned to embrace its demands. The maintenance rituals, the tuning challenges, and the need for constant care made ownership a partnership rather than simple possession. Keeping the carbs balanced, the valves synchronized, and the oil system clean became acts of devotion. The reward was an experience modern riders rarely encounter. A machine that truly responded to the rider's skill, mood, and precision. When tuned perfectly, the Yamaha RZ500 offered one of the most thrilling and communicative rides imaginable. Every vibration, every throttle blip, every corner exit carried feedback straight from the engine to the rider's senses. As time passed, the Yamaha RZ500 transitioned from performance weapon to prized collectible. Restorers began seeking original parts, preserving details down to the factory decals and paint codes. Auction prices climbed, especially for unmodified examples. The bike's limited production run ensured rarity. Its engineering ensured relevance. Collectors often speak of it not as an investment, but as a mechanical heirloom, a tangible connection to an era when boundaries were meant to be pushed. For many, hearing the RZ500's distinctive exhaust note today is like hearing the heartbeat of 1980s racing culture. In the broader landscape of motorcycle evolution, the RZ500 also served as a reminder of how technology shapes emotion. The transition from two-stroke to four-stroke power was inevitable, but it came at a cost. Efficiency replaced urgency. Smoothness replaced surprise. The RZ500 was unpredictable by design, and that unpredictability made it alive. It taught riders that imperfection could be beautiful, that control was earned rather than guaranteed. Modern sport bikes deliver extraordinary performance, but few evoke the same sense of challenge, the same pulse of adrenaline at the edge of the power band. The Yamaha RZ500 remains the reference point for that feeling. Its racing DNA continued to inspire Yamaha's later machines. Lessons learned from the RZ500's compact engine layout and power delivery influenced models like the company's four-stroke sport bikes, and even their approach to mass centralization in racing prototypes. Although the technology shifted, the philosophy endured. Build machines that connect the rider to the road as directly as possible. The RZ500's existence proved that racing technology could be successfully translated into production form without losing its soul. In historical context, the RZ500 marked the end of a mechanical philosophy that valued raw feedback over digital refinement. It was built during a time when the challenge of taming power was part of the excitement. Riders learned to read the bike's cues, to balance aggression with restraint, and to respect its unpredictability. In that way, the RZ500 was a teacher as much as a machine. It rewarded precision, punished overconfidence, and made every successful ride feel earned. The Yamaha RZ500's rarity in North America added another layer to its mystique. Because it was never officially imported into the United States, it became a legend whispered among enthusiasts. A machine seen only in magazines or at the occasional motorcycle meet. Importers and collectors worked tirelessly to bring examples across borders, navigating regulations and sourcing spare parts from overseas. Owning one became a badge of commitment, a declaration that you valued experience over convenience. Even today, RZ500 owners often gather at meets and vintage events, their bikes gleaming like artifacts from a parallel world where two-strokes never disappeared. As restoration culture has grown, so too has appreciation for the craftsmanship behind the Yamaha RZ500. Modern restorers use 3D scanning, period-correct paints, and precision machining to return these bikes to showroom condition. Some modify them subtly, better brakes, modern tires, upgraded suspension, to make them more usable, while others preserve them exactly as they left the factory. Either way, every restored RZ500 carries a piece of history. A living reminder of what happens when engineering ambition meets racing obsession. There is also a cultural dimension to the Yamaha RZ500 story. It symbolizes the optimism and experimentation of the 1980s, a time when industries were willing to take risks to capture imagination. The RZ500 was not designed by marketing departments. It was conceived by engineers who wanted to feel alive every time they twisted the throttle. That kind of passion is rare in modern manufacturing, where efficiency and compliance often overshadow emotion. In that sense, the RZ500 represents something larger than itself. It represents the spirit of creation for its own sake. Even among non-riders, the RZ500 has become a recognizable icon. Its angular bodywork, dual headlights, and 4 exhaust outlets give it a distinctive silhouette that immediately evokes the 1980s racing aesthetic. Vintage posters, scale models, and video game cameos have kept its image alive for new generations. It occupies the same mental space as other mechanical icons of that era. Machines that captured the optimism of progress and the thrill of speed. It remains a touchstone for designers, engineers, and enthusiasts alike. Today, the Yamaha RZ500 stands as proof that innovation, even when short-lived, can leave a lasting impact. Its production may have been brief, but its influence continues to ripple across decades of motorcycle design. Every time a rider fires one up, that high-pitched two-stroke song reconnects the present with the past. The RZ500 does not belong to nostalgia alone. It belongs to the ongoing conversation about what makes riding meaningful. It challenges the idea that progress must always mean more control, reminding us that sometimes, the Yamaha RZ500 remains one of those rare machines that encapsulate a moment in history and turn it into something timeless. In 1985, when Yamaha launched this motorcycle, the world of high-performance engineering was in transition. The RZ500 became the bridge between the raw intensity of racing and the refinement of the modern sport bike. It carried forward Yamaha's Grand Prix legacy and gave everyday riders the closest experience possible to riding a GP machine on public roads. Today, when enthusiasts look back, the RZ500 stands not just as a technological milestone, but as a declaration of what Yamaha believed motorcycling should feel like: emotional, challenging, and endlessly rewarding. What makes the Yamaha RZ500 endure is its honesty. It does not pretend to be practical or forgiving. It simply exists as a pure expression of performance. Its 499 cubic centimeters two-stroke V4 remains an engineering marvel. Complex, demanding, and exhilarating, its YPVS system was a technical bridge to modern power management. Its twin crankshaft design balanced precision and chaos in equal measure. When that power band hit, it offered an experience no amount of traction control or electronic aids could replicate. Even decades later, the RZ500 still represents that rare moment when engineering ambition outpaced caution, when performance came with personality. Collectors and riders continue to celebrate the Yamaha RZ500 because it captures what many feel is missing in modern machines: a sense of risk and reward. Riding one is not about statistics or lap times. It is about the connection between the human and the mechanical. Every pulse from the V4 engine, every snap of the throttle, reminds you that motorcycles were once built to make hearts race first and impress computers second. This philosophy continues to inspire Yamaha's engineers, even in an age of precision electronics and sustainability goals. The lessons learned from the RZ500's design still inform how the company balances power, control, and emotion. The RZ500's influence extends far beyond Yamaha itself. It helped shape the identity of the entire sport bike category, proving that advanced engineering could coexist with raw excitement. Modern bikes owe their balance of agility and stability to experiments like the RZ500's chassis and engine layout. Its legacy lives on every time a manufacturer dares to prioritize thrill over conformity. For riders, it serves as a reminder that technology should enhance passion, not replace it. In cultural memory, the Yamaha RZ500 remains a symbol of freedom and ingenuity. It arrived during a decade defined by confidence and experimentation, and it reflected that spirit perfectly. It was a machine born from competition but designed for the dreamer, the rider who looked at the racetrack and wanted to bring a piece of it home. That dream still resonates. At vintage rallies and motorcycle gatherings, when an RZ500 is started, conversations stop. People listen. They remember what performance once sounded like. Nearly 4 decades later, the RZ500 continues to defy time. It has earned its place among the most celebrated motorcycles ever built, not because of mass production or convenience, but because it dared to exist. It represents a philosophy that will always matter: that true performance is not just about speed, but about sensation. For Yamaha, it remains a testament to what happens when engineers follow passion instead of prediction. For riders, it is a legend that still rides. And that is why the Yamaha RZ500, the GP-inspired monster of the 1980s, remains unforgettable. It was more than a machine. It was a message. A reminder that progress can be exciting without losing its soul. A legacy built on sound, speed, and spirit, still alive every time its engine sings to life.